A big hi to all. This is Ashwat working as a growth marketer for Amplers. In our podcast series, I'll be interacting with sales, marketing, and digital marketing professionals and take a little peek into that journey, which can help us to collaborate, learn, and unlearn from each other's success stories. On today's podcast, we have Rahul, who's much into sales. Hi, Rahul.
Hi, Ashwat. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm actually just starting my day, so I think I'm in the peak of my energy right now. So good to have this podcast right now.
Oh, okay. So, in which part of country you're staying in?
I'm actually based out of Bangalore, India.
Okay. Oh, okay. You are into night shift, right?
Yes. I actually cater to North America,
Mhm.
so my working hours are start around 6 p.m. and I work till 3 a.m.
Oh, cool. I haven't worked in a night shift. I didn't know like how would be in night shift. So what is the major crux that you see the difference between night shift and day shift?
It's a lot peaceful in case that's the incentive you're looking for. It's very peaceful. You don't have to interact with many departments, many people.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest perk I can tell you. You get to have a lot of day at your hand because even if I
Hmm.
sleep by 3 p.m., I am mostly up by 10 or 11. Then I have the whole day to myself to plan things, to do a lot of things which people in the regular shift are not able to do, and they would like to postpone those events till the weekend. So I think that's where kind of night shift kind of wins.
Yeah, I agree with your point. When you don't have a lot of people to interact with, that would help you to concentrate on your work.
Oh
You can
yeah,
be
oh
really
yeah,
focused. Yeah,
big time,
and
big time.
and you know that sales job needs that.
Oh yeah. At the same time, I think I work out of we work out of a scenario where there's obviously private offices, so you can focus more. And like I said, most of the team I interact with, my sales and my marketing and
Hmm.
other supporting functions, they work in a general shift. So they're usually not there, so I have to start even day early. But at the same time, like I said, a lot of day at hand, so that helps.
Hmm. Cool, cool. So tell us a bit about your background, Rahul. That
Sure.
we would like to know that.
Absolutely. So I'm the SDR manager at ChargeBee, or I might say BDR. I'll talk more about the distinction later so that
Hmm.
you and the audience remember this podcast even after years if they're listening. My background is actually into hotel management. And yes, I studied alcohol and food for a living.
Hmm.
That's usually an icebreaker for me when I'm actually talking to a different, a lot of different people, because I believe I am not much talented or skilled. But I think this is one thing which kind of serves as a icebreaker for many events. Yes, I studied alcohol. I studied beer, whiskey, any alcohol or spirit you can imagine under the sun. I studied that for a living, tasted it, had the best years of my life. Anyways, I stepped into sales about 4 years ago, and it was totally by chance. A colleague of mine was interviewing at a bootstrap company and happened to discuss the opportunity just a day before his interview. Now, I tagged along, and unfortunately, he did not go through, couldn't get through, but I could. I struggled initially in the sales role and the SDR role, but I had a good coaching, and I somehow sailed through. Then I moved to Bangalore, worked with a company, WhatFix, where I was entrusted to build the outbound team after 7 months into the SDR role. I hired and trained a team of 5 outbound reps, and we were able to see an ROI over 500,000 in less than 7 months. Now,
Cool.
that's a big win. That's a big win for organizations, especially operating outbound from India. Because
Hmm.
if you talk to industry leaders, especially in India, or talk to founders, CEOs, you will realize it's a very hard thing to operate from India and build a successful outbound function.
Hmm.
Um, Currently, I'm excited about building an outbound team for the North America for my company, ChargeBee.
Yep. Yep.
We already have an outbound team which is working for Europe. That's working very well. We've seen an ROI in less than 6 months. And now what we're trying to do is trying to replicate the same process for North America. So I'm hiring big time. I have a team of 4 or 5 starting next month. So I'm very excited about this. Talking a little bit
Hmm.
about the ChargeBee, we are a subscription management platform to assist SaaS companies processing recurring payments to remove billing complexities by automating their recurring revenue workflow. Now,
Hmm.
what we do is we integrate with leading payment gateways around the world to automate the whole online and offline payment collection, invoicing, email notification, and customer management.
Hmm.
If this is too jazzy, let me simplify and dumb it down for everyone who does not understand all these terms. You and me both are a Netflix user. There are times when our credit card declines. Now,
Yep.
imagine Netflix having multiple millions of users. They would not have the time and the bandwidth to manually inform everyone that your credit card declined for XYZ reason, right? So
Hmm.
you need a backend system to manage all this. And this is just one of the
Yep.
example of what happens in the background. when you have a SaaS subscription or any subscription of any kind. Fair enough?
Yep. So it will automate the billing process.
Yes, automate the whole subscription management process. So our best ICP, ideal customer profiles with the companies who are processing a certain recurring revenue every month or maybe annually.
That's really interesting. I just went through a profile, and
Yeah.
in WhatFix you worked for outbound, and when you joined ChargeBee, right, you have started to play with like inbound kind of marketing. So
Yep.
what is the basic difference that you saw?
At WhatFix, in fact, when I started at WhatFix, I think initially I started with inbound and then eventually gradually moved to outbound when I was setting up the team. Back at ChargeBee, when I started, again, yes, I started with managing the inbound SDRs and then grew to manage the outbound team. I think it's a lot of change of the mindset. It's fairly easy to manage and operate and work in an inbound environment where you know the prospect is already interested, someone who signs up, someone who already has interest and is already probably expecting your call when you call them, so they're not surprised. There's no surprise element. You don't have to push harder. You don't have to, even if you send an email which is not personalized, even if you send something which is choppy, and even if you don't have the energy to actually talk to the prospect is still going to talk because there is a genuine interest from the other party. So, like I said, the job becomes very easy when you're inbound. Outbound is a different ball game altogether. You have to have different strategies, different mindset, have the upbeat energy at all times. Because when you're dialing 60, 70 calls a day, you don't know how many connects would you really expect. And prospect usually do not return the call. Well, that's not the case in inbound. So you understand it's a totally 180-degree switch,
Yep. So I was really keen on understanding like what is the major thing that you went through, major changes within yourself when you switch from outbound to inbound. So that's why I just asked that question. So like, sales, when you take any domain, every domain would have a sales team and they would face a separate kind of sales challenges. So what is the challenge that you faced in your domain, Rahul? We would love to know that. And how did you tackle that challenge?
Sure. Like I said, my expertise is actually into business development. So I will list a few challenges around that. And in fact, these are very good challenges to have. And at the same time, these keep me on my toes. As a leader, my job is obviously to hire on a regular basis. So hiring is something which goes on simultaneously at all times because there are people who are moving into different teams, quitting sometimes or looking for another growth. So my biggest challenge, I would say, as a leader would be finding the right talent. This is absolutely crucial for success of any outbound or inbound function. I would say more for outbound. One, like I said, there are not many companies in India who have been able to successfully deploy this outbound engine. So the talent is very scarce and finding the one which matches your requirement is even less. So if you see where I'm coming from, I cannot have more choices. Sometimes we would have to compromise. Sometimes we would have to see and manage with someone who is at least coachable so that we can coach them to suit our requirements. If I were to talk about another challenge, which is something very common with most of the outbound functions now, is the prospect is becoming smarter. Right? This is the interesting one. Now, while we're discussing best ways to set up meetings, if you scroll on LinkedIn, if you find books, which talks about how to really get those meetings, you have to understand the prospect is also learning best ways to negotiate with the vendor. Now, imagine you are reaching out to a CEO who is already being approached by 100 others. And while he wants to reply to every email possible, he wants to also manage his time better and invest only in the tools which probably directly impacts his bottom line immediately. Right? Now, unless you are coming with some unique ways to send those emails or start your calls, you have to understand you will just end up like the hundreds he has already ignored already this week. So I think that's very important that you acknowledge the fact that your prospect is smarter. So you have to be at your toes and come up with new methodology, see what the other SDRs around the world is adopting and see what's working for them, and just be on your toes. If I were to talk about another and last one would be I think setting up a learning mindset. So, and this is one of the key things which I look for when I hire is, does the person has a learning mindset? He might or might not have learned anything around the sales, but is he keen to at least open up and be open to learn more things, learn more things around personality
yeah.
development, interpersonal skills. So I simply love the fact that, we all can be better if we just strive through and strive enough to better ourselves, even 1% every day. I've spoken to about over 250 candidates in the last 2 years, and realized that most successful ones are the one who really learn and execute, who really long to, yearn to learn. Now, if you see, this one is actually harder to achieve, and the leaders almost ignore it. Like I said, not many companies in India, so you actually kind of manage with whatever you get, even if the person is not coachable. Sometimes we end up hiring them. Now, startups, you understand, are usually short on the staff, and SDRs are often left to fate. Now, few of the SDRs who are starting their career often has no clue what to learn, how to learn, and it becomes even crucial that leaders direct SDRs to adopt a learning mindset and culture where everyone learns as a daily practice and share their learnings.
Yep. So learning is something, it's a constant process. You need to keep yourself updated with the things happening, because market is really dynamic. And I love what you said. So the thing which I'm very curious to know here is, like, what are all the questions you would ask when you hire a person for SDR roles?
It's an interesting one. Actually, I did a whole video series back at my previous organization where I kind of listed down in 5 minutes as to what you should really focus on when you're joining a company, what to look for in the company, what does really company look for. In fact, you brought in something very interesting. Me and one of my SDR is actually working on an ebook, which comprises of all the hiring best practices around the world. It also talks about if you are someone who is looking out for a job, what you should look for in a company, what kind of question you should ask the company, and if you are a company, what kind of things you should look for in SDR. So this book is going to revolve more majorly around the hiring. Now, if I were to talk about one of the few of my favorite questions, which I usually ask in the email in the interview is, explain me your product and explain me my product, the one charge me, like you would explain to a 6-year-old. I believe if you cannot dumb it down to a level of 6-year-old, and if you cannot explain it in the most simplest way, I think we have a problem, right?
Yeah. Actually, this is more sort of an Einstein's way of describing things, because if you can't explain a thing in a very simple way where a 6-year-old can understand, then you didn't understand the thing about the product.
Yeah, and I think I don't know about Einstein. I mean, I'm not sure if I kind of stole the idea unknowingly, but I think there's also a website which actually talks about explaining ideas like how would you explain to a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. I think there's a website which probably exists somewhere, and there are times when, and it's even crucial. The reason I ask this question is it's very crucial because there are times when you, especially in outbound, when you reach out to prospect has no idea, and they might be busy in some other meeting or some other thoughts. And when you bog them down with the jargons and a lot of language which is not easy to understand and comprehend, it becomes hard. And there are times when prospect says, "Hey, I didn't understand a single thing you said," or "I didn't understand what you guys do. Can you explain me? Or can you simplify it for me?" Now that becomes crucial, because there are times when I throw this question to the SDRs. There are SDRs who are able to come up with the answers I'm not expecting, like crazy, examples using toys, using candies, and there are times when people really struggle a lot.
Yep.
So yeah, that's one of the questions.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to test out an SDR. So going forward, since you said about the things which you would ask in an interview, this podcast could be listened by more of the sales and marketing people. So if you have any tip or trick that you know in sales, that would be really helpful for us, so that we can also imbibe and implement it.
Sure. Okay. I think one of the foremost thing I would say is build very strong relationships on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a great platform for you to interact with. And don't end up your relationships there. Do not get bogged down by the vanity matrix like likes and posts and adding more connections every day. I would say think about how you can leverage and bring those relationships offline. So, for example, the way I do this is I try to speak to at least one CEO or a founder or a sales leader in India and try to understand their process and see if I can contribute in their process, and we both can learn the best practices. If you're an SDR, or even if you are, let's say, a company which is starting and you're trying to set up the process and you're just trying to sound very different when you reach out to your prospect, this is one of the tricks I apply, which really works well for me. Set up a Google alert for the companies you're following, or let's say who could be your potential customers. And how it will help you is when companies like this, for example, gets funding, you will be the first one to know because Google Alert is the first one to notify you before the companies even post this on their social media platforms. Third thing I would say, and again, that this could be a general advice for everybody, don't just blindly follow any advice you find online. There is just so much noise, and you have to be smart enough to actually know how to filter this. Learn time management. I think this will serve you well. This has served me well in the past 2 years. Try to reduce the distractions as much as you can.
Yeah, time management is something like, it's really important in each one's role, because when you don't follow time, right, you will get missed by the track. You just go off track. So time management is something really important. So my mind runs on something different. Like you said about SDR, like recruiting SDR. So why should one get into an SDR?
Okay, I think that's an interesting question. And so first of all, let me state some facts. I read this a while ago that SDR actually is one of the top 5 skills in demand right now across the world. There are about 575,000, if I remember the numbers correctly. There are these many number of jobs which already exist, because you have to understand every SaaS company or every company for that matter would actually require SDR today or tomorrow or whenever they're starting. Why should you consider the career? Okay, you are the face of the company. If that makes things easy. First voice prospect will ever hear from your company will be yours. You are the one who can make or break the company. And if I were to give you something, big wins your company will be celebrating or is celebrating today is possible because you or someone like in the sales development started a conversation some time ago. So this is the most important role in the organization. And yeah.
So you're saying that SDR people is the face of the organization because they are generating revenue, and that revenue is like quite distributed to all other people in the organization.
Absolutely. So I think companies need SDR as much as they need closer, because you have to understand closers would not be able to dispose their time as much as a dedicated SDR will be able to do to reach out to those many prospects. I think they all come with a different skill set. So it makes sense that companies, do devote their time in building out their SDR teams.
Good. So most of the companies have account executives and also SDRs. I think Chargebee has both, right?
Yep.
So what are all the roles and responsibilities changes? What are all the KPI? What is the difference in KPI they have?
So if I were to talk about SDR and account executive, I think their KPIs are pretty simple. SDRs are responsible to set up meetings for account executive, while account executives are responsible to close those deals. Speak to the prospect at greater length, understand their problems, challenges in detail, and present the solution around those requirements. And like I said, while SDR job is to initiate those conversations, and their job is to give you a distinction. SDR job is to sell the account executive, and account executive's job is to sell the product.
Yep. Okay. So it needs an SDR to have an ample experience to get into AE.
Yep. And I'm glad you actually brought that sensitive topic, because I think most of the SDRs, including mine, including the ones I've talked to, the ones I've interviewed in the past, I said more than 250. I think a lot of the SDRs, once they have spent some time in the role, they usually think of transitioning to account executive role. And I think I don't blame them, because that's the way most of the organizations, especially in India, have portrayed the role. That if you've been in SDR role for 2 or 3 years now, I think it's a natural time for you to transition to the account executive role. But you have to understand, unless or until you have not been trained to do that role well, you will actually fail into that role. And not just AE role, let it be any other role for that matter. So I think my advice to everyone, if you're an SDR, just don't be in a rush to become an AE. If you haven't mastered the role yet, take time, then make a jump. There is so much to learn, and that's something which I learned once I, kind of transitioned to the role of SDR manager. There's just so much to learn and implement that we have not explored the role completely yet.
That's cool, because all salespeople would have a mindset that is a mental block. When
Yep.
these mental block gets challenged, your thinking process gets changed, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
So,
that's how you shape up into a ego.
yeah. So, you know what? I understand the dilemma of SDR. Once you have been into that role, and there are times, when companies also kind of project this image when SDRs are just joining or starting the company that, hey, once you spend some time, let's say in a year, then we can talk about, transitioning you to an AE role. However, I think most of the companies are probably getting this wrong. Where, in fact, I get a number of calls every week where founders, sales leader, made this mistake of thinking that account executive or maybe a sales leader who's managing the account executives will also be able to lead the SDR team. Now, you have to realize that these are two different talent sets. And it's time that companies realize that before making this mistake over and again. And let me give you a tip for all the SDRs who will probably be listening to this. Speak to your company if they have a training plan to groom you to transition to an AE role. Now, if they don't have a plan, let me actually give you one. Make up a plan of your own where you spend some time shadowing account executives, gaining their confidence, gaining more product knowledge, showcasing demos to the leads. And I think this is very important. Every company has this opportunity where there are a lot of leads, which are deals, which are disqualified by account executive due to timelines or maybe, let's say, budget. You can if you're an SDR, pick up those leads, showcase the demos to them because those leads are anyways gone. Spend some time, and if you're able to bring even one of those deals back on the table, you're already ready and you don't have to prove to anybody.
That's cool. That's cool, Rahul. I like what you said because, some people it takes time to get into AE role, and some people they will search a talent outside for AE roles. Suppose if you have that skill, just go forward and take that project and get it done. I like what you said.
Yeah. Just prove yourself. I'm sure there are other opportunities as well. This is just one of the example I took, but I'm sure you can find more opportunities within the organization. See for yourself. How can you actually prove to yourself, to your company, that you're already ready?
Yeah, that's an interesting takeaway, Rahul. I think can be imbibed by the people who's listening to this podcast. We have been talking about sales for a long time. I just wanted to move into a different topic. So sales is a kind of a role where it's an interesting role. I would agree on that. But it's also a challenging role where you need to get deals completed in a short period of time. So definitely you develop stress. Like how do you relieve your stress?
I think the best stress buster for me is that I hit gym like at least 6 days a week, not 5, not 4, not 3. I think 6 days a week. I mean, there are times when I even go on weekends, because I think you're right. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of uncertainty we deal with on a daily basis, especially into sales development or especially into any role where you are. If you're a sales leader, you're an account executive, SDR, no matter what role you are in, there's a lot of uncertainty you deal with. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know whether you'll be able to hit the quota tomorrow. But of course, even though you have a process, there are roadblocks which you have to deal with on a daily basis. The meetings you attend to, the prospect is changing, the market is changing. Everybody, their billing cycles, which are different. Sorry, the sales cycles are different. So yeah, a lot of stress. I think for me, gym works best.
Okay, so you hit gym on a daily basis?
Yep. Absolutely, without fail.
Okay, that's a difficult task.
Yep.
That's a good stress buster. In this market, right, there are a lot of payment gateways in the same market space, and you need to have some confidence to say that whatever service that you're going to provide your customers, it's at the best. So, what is that confidence behind you to say those words?
I think one, it's about understanding the market. So let me talk a little bit about why we think we have the confidence to go behind. So first of all, it's our customers' words, which we're going by. So if I talk about the reviewing tool G2 Crowd, and if you go there, they will list us as the market leader. And it's not because we say so; it's because our customers say so. As Simon Sinek says, you can't simply be the company, who says that, hey, we are the best by the rules you set for yourself. We are saying we are the best because we have our customers who are backing up our statement. They are the one who went onto an anonymous website and talked about why they believe our services are the best, why they believe we solve the problem, which is the biggest hurdle for them while they're growing or scaling, or dealing with any of the accounting challenges. So we're simply going by the customer's word. I think that really gives us the confidence.
Okay. So testimonials are the best confidence booster one can have. Not one, like the company can have, because that builds reputation and that also brings more customers in.
Yep.
That's a cool confidence booster, Rahul. So at the end of the podcast, I would love to have a message from you to all of our listeners.
Sure. If you're thinking about taking a career in sales development or maybe growing yourself within the sales development role in India, go for it. I would say that market is huge. You will have tons of opportunities. If you have any doubts, you need help with reaching out to company CEOs or understanding how you can grow your career, I will help each and every one of you who needs help. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure. That's a great service. Thanks for your willingness to provide those kind of service to people.
My pleasure, Ashwat. Thank you for being a great host.
Thank you, Rahul. Have a very wonderful.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.